Let's learn about the strategy of questioning. What is questioning? If you're thinking, asking questions, then you're right. The strategy of questioning means to stop and ask yourself questions about the text and the author's intentions. You will use two types of questions for this strategy. There are questions that monitor your comprehension and questions that extend your thinking. Monitoring questions are easier to answer. These questions will also have a right answer. Did I understand what I just read? And how old is this character are good examples of monitoring questions. Asking questions like this can tell us what we need to do next. Sometimes we can answer the question and continue reading. Other times, we may need to go back and reread a section to find the information. Sometimes we will realize the text hasn't answered our question yet, but this may give us a reason to keep reading. Questions that extend our thinking help us better understand what we are reading. These questions may be a little more difficult to answer, and there will usually be more than one right answer to these questions. Why is this character so mean? Or, are these rules fair? Are examples. Someone else answering this question may have a completely different answer from yours. This type of question gets us thinking about different possibilities. Answering these questions shows that we understand what we are reading and that we are able to form our own opinion about the text. Why is questioning important? Questioning is super important because both types of questions help you interact with the text. Just like parents, teachers, and coaches ask you questions to be sure you understand, you can ask yourself questions to help yourself understand what you read. Asking questions that monitor our comprehension and extend our thinking will show us what we understand, how we feel, what our opinion is, and what we are confused about. This helps us think about what we are reading, which in turn helps us remember what we read better. If you are asking a lot of comprehension monitoring questions, the text might be too tough for you, or the book just might be boring to you. So keep that in mind as you read. How can we ask quality questions? Training your brain to ask questions as you read is the first step. Asking questions for both fiction and nonfiction texts will help you, and also asking who, what, when, where, why, and how questions will help. Here are some fiction questions you could ask. Who is this character again? Or what is the setting of this chapter? Why did the character act that way? Or what would I do in this situation? And here are some nonfiction questions you could ask. Who is involved? When did this happen? What am I confused about? And why does this happen? Are good examples. Once you've asked the question, search your brain for an answer to figure out what you need to do next. Remember, you have a few options about what you could do next. If you can answer the question, you can keep reading. If you're not sure, you might need to go back and reread. You could also make a prediction, or you could preview the next section to see if your question is answered. Let's look at some examples. If you had an article to read for music, and the article was titled, Music That Tells a Story, you might wonder, does this mean the sound or the lyrics? Or how could music tell a story without lyrics? Now, these are pre-reading questions, and they don't always need to be answered before you move on. Let's read the article. Throughout history, different groups of people have created music for different purposes, from passing down history from one generation to the next, to signaling the military during battles, or purely for entertainment purposes. Music has many purposes, including storytelling. While lyrics can help the reader create the story in their mind, composers of earlier music aimed to tell a story through different variations of aspects like tone, pace, and pitch. We may want to ask more questions now, like, how did the military use music to signal the troops? Or what is a composer? And maybe, what kind of story can be told without lyrics? Here's another example using fiction. This is from The Pirate Captain's Daughter. I always knew my father was a pirate, and I always knew I wanted to be one too. But I had to stay home to look after my mother, who was sickly. And besides, I was a girl and maybe at 15 a bit young, though of course I didn't think so. I suspected my mother also knew my father was a pirate, but she pretended to herself and to me that he was still a captain in the Royal Navy. My mother was a proper Boston lady of Scottish ancestry, accustomed to the theater and the opera before she met and fell in love with her dashing naval man. A dashing naval man who turned out to be something different. What questions do you have to monitor your comprehension? Maybe, where is this story taking place? Or, will she become a pirate? What questions do you have to extend your thinking? How about, how does she know her father is a pirate? Or, why would she want to be a pirate? If you keep reading, you will answer many of these questions. I don't want to give them away in case you want to read this book one day. Here's a recap of what we've learned. Questioning means to stop and ask questions about the text before and during my reading. Answering the questions is just as important as asking them. There are two types of questions we need to ask ourselves. There are questions that monitor our comprehension. They have one right answer, and they tell us if we understand. There are also questions that extend our thinking, and they make us think deeply. They may also be answered differently by other readers. We should ask and answer questions every time we read. Let's make it a habit. Congratulations! You have just leveled up your reading knowledge, and you are ready to practice the strategy of questioning.